Why had no one heard the shot? Brooke pressed her cheek deeper into the rifle stock, the rough edge of the rock heating beneath her jaw. The desert didn't answer. It just shimmered, all distortion and dust. She exhaled slowly, not out of relief. Just rhythm, 1 count in, 2 hold, 1 count out. Same as always. Even now, after hours in the sun, body pressed into sand and stone, there was no fatigue in her hands, no slack in her focus. That came later, maybe, but not now. The rifle way. Quiet across the crest, bipod dug firm into the hardened dirt. A ghost of movement rippled far below, a faint figure near the downed wreck. Not the pilot. She'd ruled that out long ago. The gait was wrong, tactical, confident, watching, just like she was. Brooke tracked the target, each adjustment smooth, silent. Her gloved finger brushed the dial, 1 notch to sharpen, 1 to clarify. The wind skimmed across the ridge again, dry and gritty. She read it like a second language. Left to right, light shift, intermittent curl. Enough to matter. Enough to alter trajectory over 2,000 meters. She wasn't guessing, not ever. She'd spent too long behind glass. Enough to feel when the mirage lied. Enough to know when it didn single quotes T. The man paused, half silhouetted. She saw the antenna first, then the weapon. No words passed her lips. No command came through her earpiece. Just the stillness and the clean, mechanical motion of a shot breaking silence. The crack vanished before it ever echoed. 1 twitch of recoil. 1 figure collapsing in the sand. It was over before anyone else even saw it start. And she waited, still, alert, calculating. No second shot. No flinch in her cheek. No shift in her elbow. The scope held center. The desert held its breath. Why was she here, and not them? The thought came soft, quick, then gone. She brushed it off like sweat along her brow, returning to the routine. The spotter scope sat tucked beside her, hidden under rock and netting. She made a small note on the cloth tag near her bolt. Just drop, wind, and distance. No names, no glory. It wasn't that she felt nothing. She did. She just knew it didn't belong here. The SEAL team had moved again, veering east now. Smart. If the man she dropped had seen them, it didn't matter anymore. Brooke adjusted her scope. A fresh quadrant, a new field. The mirage thickened. Lines shimmered like ghosts in a dream. And yet, she never blinked. Below, the wind curled again. A second target wouldn't wait. She felt it. What was she really doing out here, and who had she become? Brooke shifted slightly, barely enough to change her angle. Her elbow settled into a new crease in the rock. She hadn't moved in hours, but her body knew the terrain now. Every ridge, every scratch of sand beneath her ribs. Her lips were cracked, her tongue dry. She drank only when the moment allowed it. Less movement, less scent, fewer variables. She'd learned that the hard way, somewhere else. In another silence, the desert offered no forgiveness. It just mirrored back whatever you brought to it. Another shape moved along a southern slope. Too far, not yet in reach. She marked it mentally, letting her scope sweep wide again. Every scan was measured. Her hands, her breath, her thoughts, all stitched into one long act of waiting. The truck appeared next. Subtle, but there. Climbing a fold in the earth with tires low and fast. It veered east, the flank. Not toward the wreckage. Toward the fallback route. They were trying to trap the team. She didn't panic. She didn't even speak. She just read the land, like she always had. Sand curled behind the wheels. The gunner stood tall in the bed of the truck, scanning. She waited. One more breath. Then her second shot cracked through the miles. The gunner dropped. No scream, no response. The truck faltered, dipped, then veered off behind a ridge. She didn't chase it. Didn't need to. The silence that followed told her enough. Her ear clicked. A whisper came through, rough, barely audible. "Vector?" She answered with 2 words. Root adjusted. Nothing else. They trusted her. Not just her accuracy, her silence, her timing, her absence. That trust weighed more than any metal. How long could one person stay invisible, and what did it cost? Brooke rolled her shoulders slightly, the ache behind her blade sinking deeper into the ridge. She hadn't spoken in hours. She hadn't needed to. Everything important had already passed through the crosshairs. But the next part, it was different. 3 heat signatures. Far south. New approach. She didn't move, just watched. Let them step into the shimmer. Let them rise and fall between illusion and truth. Then, the shot. Clean, efficient, and everything shifted. Someone had heard. Felt the disturbance. Now boots scraped gravel. Quiet at first, then clearer. A scout team. Close. She didn't reach for her rifle. Not yet. She moved like she was part of the earth. Hands pulling the camo net tighter, breaking up every curve, every edge. She became stone, brush, heat wave. And they passed by. She listened to the rhythm of their steps, uncertain, searching. Then gone. Only then did she breathe again. She slid the rifle back into position, every motion retrained, refined. And through the lens, she found the SEALs again, crouched around the pilot. One arm broken. Dust caked across his uniform. But he was alive. That's what mattered. Not the shot. Not her ache. Not the heat working into her spine. Just that. Why hadn't he moved yet? The figure on the ridge, prone, motionless, too still for coincidence, had been there for minutes. Brooke spotted him only because she stopped looking for movement. Sometimes stillness gave away more than motion. He was angled just above the extraction zone, shoulders squared toward the flat where the helicopter would land. Not random. Not recon. This man was waiting. She adjusted magnification slowly, careful not to lose the silhouette to shimmer. A faint glint confirmed it. Rounded shoulder plate, launcher gripped tight, eyes downrange. From this angle, no one else could see him. From below, he was just another rock shadow. But not to her. She didn't speak. Didn't call it in. Not yet. The seconds were precious. Telling them might only distract. She kept her eyes on the scope. Waited. Watched for breath, for twitch, for signal. Her heart beat once. Then again. Still no motion. She noted the wind, curling left, light but unstable. She felt it ripple against her sleeve, against the netting. It meant something. She checked the chamber. 1 round. She hadn't reloaded since the mortar shot. That wasn't oversight. That was intent. There hadn't been time. Not for ceremony. Just calculation. Always calculation. Down below, the SEALs were moving again. Tighter formation now, the injured pilot leaning into them. Dust followed each step. Every second counted. Brooke shifted her weight, letting her breathing shallow. She waited for the moment to align. Sight picture, distance, shimmer window, wind. The launcher shifted slightly. A small adjustment. The man was getting ready. She didn't wait. The shot snapped across the canyon. She felt it in her rib cage. Then silence. Through the haze, she saw the figure slump, arms twitch, weapon tumbling down the slope in lazy arcs. It never fired. She didn't blink. Didn't smile. Just watched. 1 second. Then 2. No reinforcements. No flash. No return fire. Just stillness. It wasn't over. Not yet. But the corridor was clear. And no one below would ever know why. Why did the wind always come just when she needed it? Brooke eased back from the scope, rolling onto her side. The bolt was open now. Empty chamber. Nothing loaded. She covered it with her palm. then listened. The air hummed faintly. Not danger, just heat. The wind was shifting again, brushing over her cheek in erratic waves. It would carry scent, scatter prints, cover her path if she moved now. She used her shoulder to knock the scope. Loose. A small crack spread across its lens. Cosmetic, harmless, but useful. Less shine, less risk. She dragged her rifle under the netting and began the crawl southward. Every inch felt endless. Her hips pressed low to the ground, elbows steering her through brittle scrub and jagged stone. She moved like something not entirely human, a shape beneath the earth, molded to the contours of the terrain. Her back burned. Her fingers were raw, but her breath stayed steady. The drone passed again, distant now, circling wider. Losing her good dot, she reached the secondary perch. Lower, tighter, less ideal, but usable. From here, she could still see the escape corridor. The angle was steep, but clear enough. She checked her range markers again, recalibrated her wind estimates based on a bent stalk of brush just ahead. And she waited. Why did she never hear the second danger coming? The SEALs had reached cover. The pilot was down again, seated against the slope. His helmet was gone. One arm hung useless, the other clutching his side. He was awake. That was something. Brooke scanned the flank, checking for motion, for signals. Mirage waves danced across her lens. Too much shimmer. But then she saw a dust trail. East. Fast. A second technical truck, reckless, barreling toward the corridor without care. No stealth. Just speed. She watched its path, calculated angles. 1,300 meters. Crosswind unstable. No clean shot to the driver, but she wasn't aiming for the driver. Her crosshairs shifted, down, right. Radiator housing. Thin metal. High risk, but the kind of shot she trained for. One that mattered. She fired. Seconds passed. Then steam. The truck jerked, veered, and dropped into a shallow ditch. No one emerged. No fire returned. Stillness again. She didn't celebrate. Just observed. The SEALs dragged the pilot lower. The smoke from the engine masked them for now. It would buy them minutes. Brooke adjusted her position. Used the smoke to shift a few feet into a new sightline, one she hadn't been able to reach before. That's when she saw them. Not smoke. Not shimmer. Shapes. Wrong shapes. Tripods. Equipment. Not rocks. Not brush. She adjusted zoom. The clarity came in waves. 3 figures. Mortar team. 2 kneeling. 1 upright. They hadn't fired yet, but they would. And that meant she had maybe 20 seconds to alter history again. Why did some threats feel worse the longer you waited? Brooke stayed motionless, just watching. The mortar baseplate was still being leveled. No tube rise yet. That was her window. Once it fired, she'd be too late. She ran the distance again, 1,800 meters. Sloping upward, crosswind steady. Mirage. Active. She didn't look at a chart. Didn't punch numbers. Her body remembered. Her breath calibrated. Her instincts whispered the math. 1 figure stood now, scarfed head, binoculars, scanning. That was the leader. She exhaled once. Paused. Then pulled the trigger. The shot was clean. Low and fast. He dropped mid-step. The loader panicked, hands grabbing the round. Brooke was already adjusting. Wind correction. Drift accounted for. Second shot chambered. She waited. When the loader rose. She fired. The shell tumbled from his grip. He fell backward. The third man dropped prone and crawled away. She didn't chase. She didn't need to. The mortar was dead, and the team below would never know how close it had come. The dust never settles out here. Brooke shifted her legs slowly, careful not to drag her boot across the ridge. The heat had peaked now, a full burn pressing down like punishment from a silent sky. Her fingers were chalk dry, inside her gloves. Every muscle held tension, like her own body had become the rifle's final spring. But there were no targets. Not yet, just awaiting. Down below, the SEALs were pinned behind a burnout truck, the pilot now lying flat, unconscious, or asleep. Brooke couldn't tell. Either way, they were stalled. The smoke from the earlier wreck was thinning, giving way to shimmer again. And shimmer meant eyes, drones, scopes, satellites. It also meant time was running short. Brooke eased her hand back to her rifle, checking her remaining rounds. 4. She could reload. The magazine lay ready in a crevice beside her, marked. With grease pencil, Win 3, drop 6.5, a reminder from her own earlier calculation. But she didn't load yet, because 4 was enough. If you made each one matter, the voice finally came in her earpiece, breaking hours of silence. Vector, confirm. Perimeter clear. Birds 3 minutes out. She didn't look away from the scope. 2 tangos neutralized. Ridge dormant. Mortar disabled. A pause. Then a quieter tone. Copy. You good? That wasn't protocol. That was human. Brooke didn't answer right. Away. She scanned again, letting her silence speak for her. Then, good enough. The mic clicked out. That was enough for them. Why did it feel heavier now, even without the sound of gunfire? Brooke adjusted her elbow, the ache finally slipping into her shoulder. Hours in the same position did strange things to memory. Her body knew it had done this before. Dozens of times. Afghanistan, Syria, a corridor in the Caucasus so cold her rifle froze to her gloves once. And yet this one felt slower, stickier. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe the silence. Maybe the fact that this wasn't supposed to be her. She wasn't even meant to be in country. Just one more temporary reassignment. One more rotation through heat and haze. And then go home. But Brooke never liked the word home. It was a place for people who didn't sleep with one eye open. A place where she didn't fit. Still, the ache didn't lie. She was tired. Not the kind that sleep could fix. The kind that buried itself behind the ribs and waited until the next mission to breathe again. A shadow broke her line of thought. Far side. West slope. Movement. 2 figures not military. Civilians, robes, worn sandals, unarmed. An older man. A boy. Shepherds, maybe. Wandering where they shouldn't be. Brooke tracked them through the scope. Watched their feet crunch over disturbed soil, right near the impact trail from her last shot. The boy looked down, said something. The man shook his head. They kept walking. Brooke's finger hovered over the trigger. Not because she meant to fire, but because instinct never left her hand. Even now, even after all this, she let the scope drift. Let the crosshairs slide away from them. Her breath stayed even, but her eyes? They faltered, because even from here, she saw the moment the boy noticed the body, the way his steps paused, how the man turned, quick and sharp, pulling him away. They didn't run. They didn't scream. They just disappeared into the shimmer, swallowed up like everything else in this place. She lowered her rifle. No one would ever know they'd seen. Just her. And that was enough. How many ghosts lived inside a single trigger pull? The sound came like a whisper behind her. 1 foot. A soft slide of boot over gravel. Close. Too close. Brooke didn't panic. She let the motion flow through her. Rolled to her left, snapping the sidearm from her thigh holster before the second footstep landed. And then, nothing. Empty. Ridge, but her gut twisted. She wasn't wrong. Someone had been there. She listened. Every ridge had its language, a dialect of echoes, crunches, wind noise. And just beyond the next bend, she caught it. Not a step. A scrape. Deliberate. Measured. She moved fast. Not loud. Fast. Her boots found silent purchase in the gravel. Her steps traced an arc wide around the sound. She moved like vapor across stone, hugging each angle of the land. When she finally rose from the edge, her pistol already leveled, her eyes met the shape. A lone scout, not from their side. Young, maybe 20. Beard dusty. AK slung across his back, knife in hand, not drawn yet. He hadn't seen her, but he would. She didn't wait for him to notice. Drop it. He turned startled, eyes wide. He froze, not out of fear. Out of recognition, because he'd seen her before. Not her, maybe, but what she was, what she could do. He didn't run, didn't fight. Just stood there. Then, slowly, he dropped the knife. Not surrender, resignation. Brooke motioned him down. He complied, eyes never leaving hers. And as she stepped back, keeping her weapon raised, she saw it. His hand, deliberately dragging a ridge of sand behind him. A symbol, a message. Old tribal code. She knew the pattern. It meant leave the dead behind. He was asking her not to shoot. She didn't. She backed away. Left him kneeling there in the wind. Because not all wars are fought with bullets. What makes a sniper break the pattern? Back at her perch, she checked the extraction zone. The dust trails now danced thicker. 2 inbound helicopters, low and fast. Their shadows blurred across the ridges. The sound followed next, the thudding thunder that meant safe. The SEALs. Pop green smoke. The pilot was lifted first. Brooke watched through the scope as the others fell back one by one, climbing aboard under the roar of rotors and dust. Her headset crackled. "Vector, you moving?" She didn't answer right away. She stared at the sand where the shepherd boy had vanished. Where the scout had knelt. Then she slid the bolt forward, locking the chamber. Negative. Last overwatch. Until you clear the zone. A pause. Then, you always stay behind? A bitter smirk touched her lips, brief, unspoken. Only when it matters. Why do the loudest battles begin in silence? The helicopters vanished beyond the ridge. Dust swirled in their wake, trailing ghosts across the canyon. For a moment, the war hushed. As if the desert itself took a long breath. Brooke didn't move. Her body remained flush with the slope, rifle cradled beneath her chin, eyes locked through the scope. The sound of the rotors still echoed in her chest, but it wasn't comfort. It was warning, because she knew how it worked. Enemies waited for the birds to leave. That's when they came, and they were coming. She spotted the first one cresting. The opposite ridge, slow, scanning. A scout crouched, careful. Then another, farther left, rifle slung low. And then a third, staying in the open too long. They were hunting, not for her, not exactly, but for someone, for bodies, for blood, for wreckage. They'd seen the smoke, maybe tracked the drone feeds, maybe followed the burned-out technical truck Brooke had disabled minutes earlier. Either way, they were close. 3 so far. But they wouldn't be alone. She adjusted her scope. Range, 1,230 meters. Wind, right drift, steady. She reached for. Around, and paused. She had 3 bullets left. 3 men visible. But that wasn't the calculation. Why is restraint harder than violence? Brooke's trigger finger hovered. Not because she hesitated, but because she counted. 3 shots would silence these men. She was capable. She could do it. End it before it began. But what came after? She didn't know who else lay hidden. Who might be watching? Who might be waiting for the flash of a muzzle, the sound of a shot? And Brooke wasn't reckless. She wasn't just a weapon. She was a system, a strategy. She didn't shoot to feel power. She shot to change outcomes. So instead, she adjusted. Her sight line to the gap between 2 rocks, 1 tier below. A 4th man emerged. She waited. Watched his footing, his rhythm. the slight hitch in his gait, left knee favoring. She noted it, then moved her aim to the rear guard. He carried comms, wires visible beneath the tunic. He was the one that mattered. She took a breath, shallow. Let her heartbeat slow. The crosshairs found the throat dot. She fired. The sound echoed like thunder against stone. One round dot, the man dropped instantly. No scream, no twitch. Just down. The others scattered, diving for cover. But Brooke was already relocating. How do you vanish when everyone's searching? Brooke didn't reload. She didn't have time. She slung the rifle low and crawled left, toward a higher rise. The gravel bit into her elbows, her knees. Every second without cover was a gamble. Shots rang out behind her, wild, panicked. None of them were close. None of them knew where she was. That was her edge. She reached a new perch, higher and less stable. The wind cut sharper here, less cover. But the angle gave her something rare: oversight and distance. Enough to see all three remaining targets below. They were grouped now, arguing, one pointing west, another waving toward where the helicopters had gone. Classic confusion. No clear commander. She chambered her second round. Scope up. Breath in. Wind adjust. She aimed for the rock next to the most vocal one and fired. The impact cracked stone, sent dust flying into his eyes. He screamed, fell backward, hand over face. That was intentional. They thought they were pinned by a team. Maybe two, but it was just her. What is fear due to soldiers? She watched them scatter, wide, undisciplined. One ran uphill, exposing his back. Another dropped prone and froze. The third, the one with the limp, moved toward the ridge trail. She focused on him, because the limp was slower now. Panic had tightened it. She scoped him in, and then she stopped, because his face turned, and for a split second, she saw something she hadn't expected. Age. Not old. Young. 17. 18 maybe. Dirt smeared across one cheek. A patch of red tied around the arm. No insignia. Just a boy, caught in something far bigger than him. She didn't shoot. She let him limp away, because not every bullet needed release. And because Brooke knew this part of war, the restraint no one ever talked about. The shots not taken. Where do ghosts go when the gunfire stops? The ridge was quiet now. Two dead, one wounded. One fled. She had one bullet left. She lay still for a long time, the rifle resting across her forearms, dust settling on her sleeves. Her headset crackled again. Vector, confirm status. She keyed the mic. 4 contacts. 2 Kier, 1 wire, 1 fleeing. No more movement. Another pause. Extraction window available. Drone coverage re-established. Move to grid Echo 7. She closed her eyes. She'd never liked Echo 7. Too exposed. Too quiet. But she said what she always said. Copy. She stood, slowly, carefully, let her boots settle into the sand without shifting rocks. She kept the rifle high and close, her shadow long against the slope. Her legs ached. Her spine throbbed. Her face was streaked with sweat and dried blood. From a small cut she hadn't even noticed hours ago. But she moved, anyway, because she wasn't finished. Because somewhere out there beyond the ridge, beyond the next call, someone else would need a bullet she hadn't yet fired. And she only had one left. You don't count bullets like you count time. Not in her world. In Brooke's world, each round is a promise. A choice. A weight you carry longer than the rifle that delivered it. She had one left, and the walk to the extraction point felt longer. Because of it, the sun had begun its descent, melting gold across the dune line as Brooke moved across open ground. Her boots whispered over gravel and powder-fine dust. Her rifle slung tight to her chest, scope lens capped, safety on. The war was quieter now, but she wasn't fooled. Quiet didn't mean safe. Quiet meant unknown. Her earpiece crackled again. You're late. It was command, casual, but not careless. Brooke didn't flinch. I stayed long enough to matter. A short silence, then a click. That was approval in their language. The path to Grid Echo 7 curved along an exposed ridge, flanked by broken shale and fading heat waves. She moved fast but deliberate, eyes scanning each shadow, every stone that didn't belong. The wind had shifted, coming in cooler now. Evening's breath across a blood-soaked land. She paused beneath an outcrop, ducking into the thin shadow of a sandstone bluff. Reached for her canteen. Drank slow. That's when she heard it. The sound wasn't loud, but distinct. Metal on rock. Too clean. Too controlled. She froze. Tilted her head. Listened again. There. Left slope. Closer than comfort. She crouched low. Pulled her sidearm quietly, then adjusted her rifle across her back. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders sunk. Not yet. Not now. Don't draw unless it's final. She ghosted toward the sound. And then she saw him. The boy. Not the limping fighter. Another. Maybe 14. Maybe less. He sat crouched behind a boulder, fingers wrapped around a rusted Makarov pistol far too large. For his hand, his breathing was fast, eyes wide. Dust caked his face and neck, and a ragged scarf flapped from his shoulder. He hadn't seen her yet. Brooke held still. Watched him. This one wasn't militia. No colors. No coms, no orders. Just fear. And a weapon he didn't understand. She stepped into his line of sight. Deliberate. Open. Her pistol lowered, but ready. His eyes snapped up. He aimed. Her voice cut across the wind. Don't. He blinked. Hands trembling. But didn't shoot. Her tone shifted, softer now. That's not your war. He didn't speak. But his arms lowered. Slowly. The pistol dangled in his grip, and then he let it fall. Not out of obedience. Out of something. Heavier. Exhaustion. Brooke approached. Kicked the weapon aside gently. Sat on the edge of the rock beside him. For a minute they said nothing. Just shared the silence. Then he spoke. In broken English. You killed him? She didn't lie. Yes. He nodded, as if that was expected. Then, he was my cousin. The one with red on arm. Brooke's jaw tightened. The limp. The youngest of the group. She remembered his eyes. She'd spared him. But somewhere between then and now, the dessert took him anyway. Her voice was low. I didn't shoot him. The boy stared at the ground. Then looked up at her. Why? Brooke didn't answer right away. Because the truth was harder than the silence. Finally, because he wasn't my enemy. What defines the enemy? Not the gun. Not the side. Sometimes, it's the moment you choose not to pull the trigger. The boy reached into his tunic suddenly. Brooke to ENCC. Her hand twitched toward her. Sidearm. But he pulled out a photo. Worn. Sun faded. A group of children in front of a crumbling stone house. One of them, smiling crooked teeth, wore a red armband. The cousin. He handed it to her. She took it. Gently. Held it for a beat, then gave it back. The boy didn't ask anything more. He just walked away. Left the pistol behind. When she reached the final ridge before extraction. The sun was dying. The chopper was inbound, a dark speck on the orange sky, cutting across the horizon like a blade. Brooke stood there on the highest stone, the desert wide around her, as she looked at the last bullet, still chambered, still, cold, still waiting. She took it from the rifle and held it. In her palm. It caught the last light of the day. Not every round finds its mark in flesh or armor. Some stay quiet. Some carry the weight of mercy. She turned and walked toward the smoke marker. Rising from Grid Echo 7. Behind her, wind erased her footprints. But not the choice. Every war has a quiet after. The kind that doesn't show up in the debriefings, doesn't echo in the hallway back at base, doesn't get stitched into the medals or reports or after-action slides. But Brooke carried it anyway, because survival doesn't. And when the boots touched the landing pad, they called it Fort Cinder. It was more dust than concrete. A forward operations hub built in a basin of forgotten stone, ringed by bunkers, sandbags, and a single crooked flag that hadn't moved in days. Brooke stepped off the bird, her rifle in hand, her body soaked in. Fatigue she didn't show. Around her, a few Marines glanced over, nodded. No applause. No questions. Just recognition. Like wolves seeing another wolf. She didn't head to barracks. She went straight to the bunker. To her locker. Inside it, a clean set of fatigues, a half-crushed protein bar, and her journal. She closed the door behind her. And sat alone. What single quotes S left after you've done everything right and still feel wrong? Brooke unzipped her vest and peeled away the sweat-stained underlayer. Her shoulder was bruised deep from the recoil. Her cheek still bore the red ring of scope pressure, but she didn't touch any of it. Instead, she pulled out the last bullet, still in her pocket. The one she hadn't fired. She set it down on the table, stared at it. The sound it didn't make still echoed louder than the ones that had. She remembered the boy, the red cloth. The photo. She remembered not pulling the trigger, and for the first time in months, she felt it. Not relief, not regret, just the full weight of mercy. Her CO entered an hour later. Major Leland. Stiff uniform. No small talk. He stood at the door. Debrief's optional. You're cleared for rest. Brooke didn't look up. Who was the target? Leland paused. Not important now. She turned toward him, eyes sharp. It was a kill mission. I walked out there blind. I want the name. Leland studied her, then stepped inside and closed the door. You intercepted a HVT cell preparing for a convoy ambush. Drones spotted them too late. You neutralized the command lead and disrupted a tactical push. That's the story. She didn't blink. What's the real one? He hesitated. Then, the one you spared, the kid, he was a runner. Known courier. Had ties to militia. Brooke said nothing, just stared. But command isn't asking questions. They got the result. That's all they wanted. She stood, slowly. And what about what I wanted? He gave her a look. Not cold. Not harsh. Just tired. You've been out there too long, Staff Sergeant. Then he left. What do you do when silence doesn't feel like safety anymore? That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay on the cot staring at the tin roof above her, tracing every dent like a scar on her memory. She didn't dream. Didn't want to. When dawn cracked the horizon, she was already outside. Rifle across her back. Vest zipped. Boots laced. There were others lined up at the tarmac. Young, fresh, nervous. She didn't join them. Instead, she walked past the staging line, past the fuel drums and ammo pallets and the row of waiting helos, until she reached the far fence line. Beyond it, open sand, far ridges, horizon wide. And while she stood there listening, not for orders, but for herself. Why do some soldiers come back without ever returning? 2 days later, she sat across from a military psych officer in a trailer that smelled of coffee and stale heat. The officer asked her a dozen questions. Routine, clipboard stuff, until she asked one that wasn't. Do you feel you're still making a difference? Brooke didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her breast pocket. Pulled out the single bullet, set it gently on the desk. I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. Not all damage is visible. Not all victories. Aloud. Some are just quiet moments, like not pulling a trigger and wondering who that made you become. You don't leave the war behind. You carry it, clean, oiled, and silent, like your weapon after the last shot. Brooke sat alone on the tarmac bench. No helmet, No rifle dot, just a green duffel and an unanswered question folded between her ribs. Across the base, choppers rotated, and Marines barked orders, and someone spilled coffee on a manifest sheet. The war machine never paused. But inside her, something had. She had been offered two options. Option 1, redeploy in 6 days. New grid. New team. New targets. Option 2, stand down. Mandatory rest. Psychological observation. Maybe home. She hadn't answered yet, and they didn't press. Because the truth is, no one knows what to do with a sniper who starts asking why. Inside the medical trailer, her vitals were perfect. Her scans were clean, but her eyes weren't. Not. To those who knew, she met one of them the next morning. Captain Harlan, retired Apache pilot. Shrapnel through her hip. Now a trauma counselor in combat boots and aviators. She didn't ask Brooke about war. She asked about the boy. Brooke didn't flinch. He didn't shoot. Harlan nodded slowly. And that surprised you? A beat. Then Brooke replied, softer than expected. It's not that he didn't. It's that I didn't. They talked for an hour. About wind. About glass. About the moment right before the trigger. Breaks. About the moments after. Then Harlan said something Brooke hadn't heard from anyone else. Sometimes the bullet you don't fire is the one that changes you. And Brooke just nodded. Because she knew. By the third day, she stopped carrying her rifle. Not out of protest, not out of shame. She just wanted to see who she was without it. The nights were harder. Always were. Not for the gunfire or the weight of old missions, but for the silence that came after the shot. The silence that followed her even here. Brooke would sit on the edge of the bunk, hands around a chipped coffee mug, and stare at the far corner like it owed her something. That's where she kept the bullet, still unfired, still listening. Letters came. From command, from a father she hadn't spoken to in 8 months, from a small outpost north of the ridge, where a Marine medic wrote, "We found a local boy who turned in a cache of old weapons. Said it was time to stop. Didn't speak much, but said to tell the woman with the long rifle he kept his promise." Brooke folded the letter once, then again, then held it against her chest for a long time. She didn't cry, but her shoulders dropped like they were finally allowed to. The desert around Fort Cinder shifted again. The winds changed. The battles moved north. And a new sniper team rotated in. Young, sharp, eager. They asked Brooke questions. Not about kills. About wind calls. Scope drift. The way she moved without being seen. And she told them. Everything. On her last day, she returned to the ridge, the one just past the fence line, where the sky went on forever and the wind carried nothing but itself. She held the bullet in her hand. Still. Cold. Still clean. She didn't bury it. She didn't frame it. She laid it flat on a stone. Then walked away. Not because it was over, but because she was choosing what came next. What does it mean to be a sniper who walks away? Maybe it means you finally see the world beyond the scope. Maybe it means the last thing you aim at is peace. A year passed. The war didn't end, but hers changed shape. Brooke wasn't on the ridge anymore. She wasn't in the kill zone. She wasn't even in the field. But her rifle, silent, faithful, legendary, still lived in whispers among the men who'd seen it speak. They called her Windsight now. A myth and a memory wrapped in fatigues. Some said she could shoot a breath of air off a sand grain. Some said she walked out of a firefight with no rounds left and no regrets. But the real story wasn't the shots she took. It was the one she didn't. Single quotes to. Brooke sat behind a metal desk now. Not out of punishment. Not out of surrender. She'd chosen. A worn American flag hung on the wall behind her. Faded but proud. A tray of spent casings lined the shelf. each with a date and coordinates scratched into the brass. Reminders. Not trophies. She wore no rank on her collar, no medals on her chest, but every soldier who entered her office came out quieter. Heavier. Straighter. The first thing she asked every young marksman was always the same. Tell me about your worst shot. Not their longest. Not their cleanest. The worst. The one that shook something. And when they hesitated, as they always did, she told them hers. She told them about the boy, about the pistol too, heavy for his hand, about the cousin with the red armband. About the moment she could have, but didn't, and how she walked away carrying more weight than her rifle ever held. Not one of them ever interrupted her. Not once. In another world, Brooke might have disappeared into dust and silence, but something unexpected happened. She became the voice she never had, and not just for snipers, for every soldier who wondered if restraint meant weakness. Who feared that mercy might haunt them louder than the kill. Brooke gave them permission to feel. To question. To believe that precision wasn't just physical, it was moral. She stood one morning at the range, watching a trainee miss a target by inches. He cursed, kicked the dirt. Brooke stepped up, took the rifle, didn't even adjust the scope. It's not the wind, she said. It's you. Then she knelt, aimed, and didn't fire. The trainee blinked. Ma'am? She smiled, slow. Not every shot is worth the noise. Later that night, under a low moon and quiet sky, Brooke opened her old journal. On the last page was a taped photo. Not of her team. Not of a battlefield, but of a stone. And on that stone, a bullet. Left behind. Beneath it, a single line. Some wars are won by not pulling the trigger. She closed the journal. And for the first time in years, slept without her hand near the weapon, because she'd finally learned something most marksmen never do. That piece is harder to aim for. Takes longer to hit. And when it lands, it doesn't echo. It lives.